We're on Daf Dalet Amud Aleph. We're going to be resuming our discussion. Back on Daf Gimel Amud Aleph, we had the question, Mani Mas Nisan, who is our Mishnah like? Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Kiva. It's not like Rabbi Shmuel, not like Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Shmuel, it can't be like Rabbi Shmuel. Again, in our Mishnah, we had the list of the Shnaim Shein Arba. Two of the Shnaim Shein Arba the first one was obviously Shavuos, right? It was talking about a Shavuos. We said Shtayim is two. These are all psukim. These are both psukim that are in the beginning. That we read that parsha, and we said Levatev is Fasayim Lahara Lahativ, which means that either he says he's going to do something in the future, either he's going to do something that's bad for himself, or he's going to say, I'm not going to do something, or he says, I am going to do something. And we said, Shehein Arba, he's going to do he's also going to be Chayiv a carbon Eilav Yared for two things in the past, that I did eat or I did not eat in the past. So, and secondly, we had also said, Yediyah Satuma. And we said, Yediyah Satuma Shtayim, which is if someone is aware that beforehand and afterwards, but he's not aware at the time that he was tamei and he ate in the Beis Hamikdash, or he ate something that's kodesh. That's where he brings our Eilav Yared. Sheheim Arba is also if he knew beforehand and afterwards, but at the time he didn't know that this was the Beis Hamikdash or that this was a piece of kachuk. That's the Sheheim Arba. So yes, Mani Masisin Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Shmuel Omer Ene Chayv Elal Asad Lavik. The Shavuot part is not going to work out according to Rabbi Shmuel. He says you're not chayiv for the Shehein Arba part to be chayiv on what's going to happen. Rabbi Kiva Amar Al Helam Tumu Chayiv Ene Chayiv Al Helam Mikdash. He says you're not chayiv. Rabbi Kiva holds you're not chayiv on the Shehein Arba of Yediyah Satuma. He says you're not chayiv a Kaiban Eilav Yared for forgetting that this is the Beis Hamikdash, or for forgetting that this is a piece of kachuk. So we have to say our Mishnah is not talking about the carbon Eilav Yared, but rather it's talking about malchus. It's talking about being mechuyev malchus if someone does this intentionally. In fact, Zok Gemara. That's now we're up to date. B'mayu kimta, about 12 lines on the top. B'mayu kimta, Rabbi Yishmael ula malchus. We said we're going like Rabbi Yishmael, even though, like we said, Rabbi Shmuel holds you're not chayiv ala asad lave. The shuas is going to be a problem, but it's not talking about shayim sheim arba for Eilav Yared. Rather, it's talking about shayim sheim arba legabe malchus, getting malchus for making a shvua for the asad as well as a shvua for the past, and it's not by mistake. Ula malchus. So, in fact, the Gemara mas negoyim my malchus eka. So if you're saying that we're talking about malchus, what malchus are there in Maris Nagoyim? Maris Nagoyim, we were saying that there are two different types of Maris, Nagoyim a Baharis and a Se'es and a Baharis, and then there's going to be a Sapachas, that's going to be a different type of Mar that's also, what does it have to do with getting malchus? So tomorrow, Ika, Bekoitzitz Barosoi, we're talking about where a person cuts off the Baharis, Ukarabavin. Because we say Hishama beneget saras, and this is going like Rav Amen Amar Eloi. The Amar Rav Amen Amar Eloi, Kamaku Shenem Hishama pen ve'al. Whenever you use the pasuk, use the words Hishamar pen or al. Any Eloi say that is an implication of don't do it. The Torah says Hishamar, that's azhara, don't do it. And if a person violates that, they're going to be mechayev malchus. So over here it says Hishama beneget saras. That's coming to tell you that you have. Not only do you have to be careful that if you get a tzaras, you're a mitzayra, but if you cut it off, then you're going to be mechuyev malchus for it. So that's the malchus that we're talking about. Each of these things that the Shtaim Shein Arba in the Mishnah is on all four of these types of tzaras, you're going to get malchus if you cut it off. Practic Gemara, Yitzia Shabbos, my malchus ika. What kind of malchus are there for Shabbos, right? We also said Shtaim Shein Arba legabi Shabbos. And we said it means shtayim b'hitzah and shtayim b'hachnasa, right? Both the ani and the asher if they do Haitzah, and the Ani and the Asher if they do Achnas. All of them are going to be Mechuyev for being Maitzi something for Haitzah, for the Isser of Haitzah on Shabbos. In fact, the Gemara, Lavshin and Lazarus Mises Bezinu. This is not a lav that you get Malchus. This is a lav that you get killed for. We know that there's a Chiv Misa from Bezdin for being Mechal Shabbos, for doing Malach on Shabbos. And there's a rule that a lav shenit and Lazarus Mises Bezdin, a lav, when the Torah says don't do something, and the Torah says if you do it, you're going to get killed, then if the person instead got a hasra that says don't do it or you're going to get malchus, he's not going to get malchus. This is not a lav that's given over for malchus. It's designated for Mrs. Bezdin, and it can't be converted into malchus. B'chol lav shenit Lazarus Mrs. Bezdin ain't like a lav. And for the Gemara, so l'chayra, how if we're saying that we're going to Rabbi Shmuel and talking about malchus, how do you convert the Yitzhak Shabbos into malchus? So the Gemara, Mishum Hachi Kamukmina Rabbi Shmuel. The Gemara says that's exactly why we're saying we had a choice. We said we're going according to Rabbi Shmuel and we're talking about a chi of malchus. The Gemara says we chose Rabbi Shmuel advisedly. The Amar Lavshin and Lazarus Mises Bezin like an love. He disagrees with the Shita that says that you cannot convert a lav that is intended to give you a chi of misa b'dei in Bezdin into a lav. He says you can, and therefore the Shtaim Shem Arba of Yitzias HaShabbos that we have in our Mishnah is talking about also Legabe Malchus. It's talking about the person was given a Hazhara, don't be Maitzi, Hazhara for the Ani and the Asher, for the person standing Befnim or B'chutz to be Maitzi or to be Machnes, they're going to get Malchus. So Gemara, Halavachi Kaimek Rabbi Kiva. The Mashmayis is from the way the Gemara just set things up. We said, if not for this, we could have said that our Mishnah is going in Malchus and like Rabbi Akiva. That means the only reason why we're saying now the reason why we said originally that this is going like Rabbi Shmuel and Malchus is because Rabbi Shmuel is the man Amar who says Azhar that's Nidin Lazarus Mises Bezin, Lav Nidin Lazarus Mises Bezin is like an love, and therefore we can explain Shabbos to be talking about Malchus. But if not for that, we could have explained like Rabbi Kiva.
So Rabbi Shmuel actually holds if he gets Malchus, he's not Chayav Misa?
No. The question is, the Torah says, let's say the Torah says, don't be Mechal Shabbos. And if you, and the Torah continues and says, if you do so, you're going to get Misa.
Right.
So the Machlekes is Rabbi Shmuel says, the Rabbanan say, since the Torah said you're going to get Misa for this, that the Torah said don't be Mechal Shabbos, it can never be converted into Malchus. Even if an individual you see is about to be Duhoitzah, and the aide warns him, if you do this, you're going to get Malchus. He's not going to get Malchus because it's Misa.
He's going to get nothing.
He's going to get nothing. He's going to get nothing because he didn't get a Hasra for Mrs. Bezdin, and the Hasra for Malchus didn't do anything. It doesn't work. Rabbi Shmuel said, so that's, but Rabbi Shmuel disagrees. Rabbi Shmuel says, even though the primary punishment for this thing is Mrs. Bezdin, if the aide gives a Hasra and says you're going to get Malchus for it, it can be Malchus. The Torah said don't do it. That when the Torah says don't do it, can be, even though the Torah gives an option of Mrs. Bezdin, it can also has an option to be Malchus. But it doesn't. He's not saying obviously that you only get Malchus for Shabbos. He's not disagreeing with the general rule that you get Mrs. Bezdin for Shabbos. Yeah, the Torah says that. But he's saying it also can be Malchus. So therefore, he can explain the mission which says Shtaim Shein Arba Legabi Shabbos to be talking about Malchus.
So the Agabus could warn them regarding Malchus and he gets a kapara.
I don't know if he gets a complete kapara where he got a Azhara of Malchus. That's more of a shkafic question. You know, what's going to happen to him? Lasid Lavai. I guess we'll go back to our original, what we learned before about whether it's going to be included, that the Sar Lazazel is Machaper for everything. That wasn't included somewhere else. Right? We said whether it's Mrs. Bezdin, you also, the Sar Lazazel. I'll have to wait for Yom Kippur to get a kapara for that. I'm saying the guy who gets Misa, yeah, obviously that's L'chaira. his full kapara if he does tshuva as well. Okay. But in any case, Zak Gemara. So Gemara, Halav Achi Kaimek Rabbi Kiva. Frek the Gemara Kashi Adiyas. The Gemara says, how could you say if not for this issue that was saying it has to be like Rabbi Shmuel because of his shita of by Lavshin and Lazarus Misabez, we could have said it's like Rabbi Kiva. But Rabbi Kiva, we said we have a problem because Rabbi Kiva says Yediyas Atoma only operates to where he has a helam, he forgot about the Tumah, not where he forgot about the Mikdash Ukdasha, where he forgot that this is the Beis HaMikdash, or he forgot that this is the Kachim. So Gemara Lav Amar Rabbi Yishmael Hi Lamalkus, Rabbi Kiva Nami Lamalkus. Well, it's a very easy fix for this. We could just say the exact same thing we said in Rabbi Yishmael. We could say it for Rabbi Kiva that we're talking about Malkus. But since Rabbi Kiva doesn't agree with Rabbi Yishmael, Legabe Lavshin and Lazarus Mises Bezin, he's going to get stuck. Legabe Shabbos, and he's not going to have a way for you to be Mechuyev Malkus, and that's why ultimately it has to be going like Rabbi Shmuel and not like Rabbi Kiva, like we had originally said. Now we're going back to our original. So we've dealt with the Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Kiva, and now we're going back to what we had said, right? We had said that the Mishnah is going like Rabbi Shmuel, and we're talking about when we say Shtaim Shem Arba, that's all Malkus, because otherwise. Legabi Oila v'Yerid, we said in Rabbi Yishmael, we have a problem. Legabi the Shavuos that we said Rabbi Yishmael only says a Shavua le'asid not le'sha'avar, so he won't have Shtaim Shem Arba Legabi Shavuos. So therefore, we had to change the Mishnah and say the Mishnah is talking about Malkus. Practic Gemara Ihachi Yediyos Hasrois Mibayale. How can we be talking about Yediyos Hatuma? Person becomes knowledgeable. When he had it, right? There's going to be a number of questions, but this is really a basic question. How can you talk about that the person became, he knew about his hasra, and then he forgot it, and he didn't know at the time of his mistake. Hasra is involved. This person was amazed. In order to get malchus, you have to be amazed. There's no malchus for shaygig. So think about it as someone who knew at the time he was doing it that he was tamei. So it's just that Hasrois Tuma, not Yedias when he becomes aware it's Shtaim Shem Arba, but rather Hasrois Tuma, when a person is warned either about that this is your Tameh and you're going into the Mikdash, or you're going and also. But first of all, it has to be talking about Hasrois, because we're talking about a mazid, not a shaykh. When it says Yedias, it means he becomes aware through the Hasra. He's warned, don't do it. So therefore he knows this Yedias is not the Yedias that we have throughout Shas. When it says Yedias Ha'atuma is Shtaim Shein Arba, it doesn't mean that he becomes aware, but rather he's gets a Hasra. It's talking about amazing. But we still have another problem. Shtaim Shein Arba, Tartihu Dahavyan. The Shtaim Shem Arba is what was the Shtaim Shem Arba? You have two is where this person b'shoigig while he was tamei went into the Mikdash or ate kachim, and the Shehin Arba is the Shtaim is that he didn't know that he was tamei, and the Shehin Arba is that he didn't know that this was the Mikdash or he didn't know that this was kachim. But we're talking about Mezid. There's no Shtaim Shehin Arba. He knew about everything. He knew both that he was tamei and he knew that was kachim. So there's no way to be mechalik between the Shtaim and the Arba. So it's only two. The whole thing, how can you talk about a Yediyah before and a Yediyah after, like we mentioned in the Mishnah, that we say that he's going to be Mechuyev Ha'olah v'Yared? The whole thing is irrelevant if we're talking about Malkus. There's no halama. He's not forgetting anything. Also, how could you say is Oila v'Yared? Oila v'Yared is for a shaygig, not for a mazid. It sounds like a sort of repetitive. We're all coming to the same point that this Mishnah is not clearly talking about a shaygig, not a mazid, and it sort of breaks it down into every different possible way of saying the same thing. So this is all shver on this pshat that we want to say that when we say Shaim Shem Arba, in order to accommodate Rabbi Shmuel's shita that he holds that you're not going to be chayiv for yediyah that was a yediyah of
the shava.
I'm sorry,
The
Rabbi
shava.
Shmuel. Right. I'm saying in order to accommodate Rabbi Akiva, we're saying it's all talking about Malchus, and then the Yediyas, according to Rabbi Yishmael, we're going to say are also Yediyas. Are also Lamalchus. So how are we going to understand Yediyas? Ella Amar Rabbi Yosef, Rebbe. We're going to have to say that this is Rebbe. Rebbe is the one. Rebbe is the person who was Masada the Mishnayos. The Nasav le'aliba the Tanoi, b'Yediyas Nasav le'akav Yishmael. Lagabi Yediyas, he's going to look at Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel has no problem with Yediyas. Rabbi Shmuel holds that Yediyas work both when he forgets that he's Tameh, as well as when he forgets that this is the Mikdash.
As long as you don't say it's Malchus, he's fine.
We're not talking about Malchus at all, right? We're giving up on the Malchus thing because the Malchus didn't work. Malchus is talking about Mazid, and Yediyas Atoma is clearly, we brought 4 different questions that Yediyas Atoma can't be talking about Malchus. So going back to our original pshat, but then we had a question, is it going like Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva? Now we're going to split the baby. That Lagabi Yediyas Atoma, where we had a problem with Rabbi Akiva, we're going to say it's going like Rabbi was saying Rabbi Shmuel Shita. By Shavuos, so we had a problem that Rabbi Shmuel says only la'asid and not l'sha'avar. Nasav la Rabbi Akiva. He's saying over Rabbi Akiva sheet. Amar Rav Ashi, Amisa l'shmaitz kameder of Kahana. I said this all over in front of Rav Kahana. Kahana was early Amira. V'amali loy tema Rabbi Nasav la alib de tanoi v'leiloi svirle. He said you could even say better than this. You're saying that Rabbi was saying over from Yishmael or Rabbi Akiva. Rebbe was really saying his own shita. Rebbe was also a Tana. Rebbe Tana Upal. Rebbe was, that was Rav. But Rebbe was a Tana. Rebbe was saying his own shita. Rebbe Tami de Nafshe Mefarish. Rebbe was saying when he said this Mishnah of Shavuos is Shtaim Shein Arba and Yediyas Atuma is Shtaim Shein Arba, he's saying his own shita, the Tanya. Minayin she'ein chayv ala sheyesh b'yediyah b'tchila v'yediyah b'soif v'hela bin time. How do we know that you only chayiv a carbon oil of a yored, which we're back to that pshat in our Mishnah, that you only chayiv a carbon oil of a yored when a person forgot before and that he knew in advance that he was tamei and that this was the mikdash, and then b'shas ma'aseh he forgot, and then he finds out about it afterwards. When he finds out afterwards, he brings a carbon. Taman loyav v'nelam shnei pa'amim. Because the Torah says nelam 2 times, it says, "Oy nefesh hashtig b'chol davar tamei v'nivlas chaya tmei v'nivlas behem tmei v'nivlas sheretz tamei v'nelam imenavu tamei v'ashem," and it forgot about it and he did it. Oy ki yiga b'tumas adam l'chol tumas hashiyit mavai. Then it says v'nelam imenavu yadav Hashem. What does it have to say the second time? V'nelam imenavu yadav Hashem. We already said v'nelam imenu. Let it just use that original v'nelam for the second part of the pasuk, for the tumah of an adam as well as the tumah of a behemoth. So from the fact that it said it twice, that's where Rabbi Akiva learns out that you have to have a yediyah b'tchila as well as a yediyah b'seif. Rabbi Omer ain't it tzarich. Rabbi says it's not necessary. You don't need v'nelam even to tell you that. You need a yediyah b'tchila b'seif. Hareyu Omer v'nelam. It says v'nelam mechlal liyada. It says that he forgot. From the fact that it says he forgot, must mean that he had originally known. V'hu yada. Then the pasuk continues and it says, "V'hu yada," right? V'nelam imenu v'tama v'ashem. Then the second one it says, "V'nelam imenu v'hu yada v'yashem." What do we have to keep saying v'yada? Once we said v'nelam, it means that he knew about it. So harei kan shtei yediyas. The Torah says yediyah not just afterwards, but a yediyah before. So we could have learned it without the 2 v'nelams. So what does Rebbe do with the fact that it said nelam twice? If you could do it just from the fact that it says yada, l'chayiv al helam tumah al helam migdash. It's to mechayiv you not just where he forgot that he was tamei, but also he forgot about that the Migdash was the Migdash, or he forgot that the Kachim was Kachim. So therefore, we see Rebbe. It's not just Rebbe Yishmael who argues on Rebbe Akiva, Legabi this din, that he says that you're going to be mechuyev for a helam of the Migdash. It's also Rebbe himself. So we don't have to say that when Rebbe said that there's Shtaim Sheim Arba B'Yediyas Atoma, that he's going like Rebbe Akiva, he's representing his own shita. Zak Gemara, Ashkachem B'Yediyas Islay Tamei Denafshei. So we said the member of Kahana is that the Mishnah is saying Rebbe. He said Rebbe saying his own shita. But Rebbe, we only have this half. We only have the Gabi Yediyas Atoma that he says the same as Rabbi Yishmael, and therefore it's not necessary to say he's saying over Rabbi Yishmael. He's saying his own din. Shavuos the Islay Tam B'Denafshe Minalan. How do we know that he holds Legabi Shavuos, that he's saying his own shita, and he's not saying Rabbi Akiva shita, that it goes not just le'asid but also l'shava? So and for the Gemara Svarahu, the Gemara is about to continue and explain what the Svara is. But first, the Gemara brings a different lishon. Lishon achrina ashkam b'yediyas to saval kibishmal, b'shuas to saval kiva minalan svarhu. There's another way of stating the same taina.
Okay.
Yeah. So Gemara svaru. What's the svara? Rabbi Kiva, my time of kamachayev l'sha'avar. Why is it that Rabbi Kiva is going to be mechayev l'sha'avar? The reason is the darish riyubei umiyute. So because he's darish a ribu umiyut. This is actually a great opportunity to review the rules, the machlekes about klal upratu klal and ribui miyut uribui. When the Torah will oftentimes, we find this, right? We do it, those of us who don't stay and learn with me till they're already halfway through Psukat Zimmer, they say Karbanas, they say Rabbi Yishmael, the Shalosh Esrei Midras. So we know that you dash in a klal upratu klal. When the Torah says a general rule, and then it says a specific rule, and then it says again another general rule at the end. We darshan the klal is coming to tell you everything is included, and then the prat is restricting it, and then we bring another klal to say el ka'ein prat, that the exceptions to the rule all have to be ka'ein the prat. The rule is limited to those things that are similar to the prat. But that could also be looked at, rather than looked at as a klal upratu klal, it could be looked at as a ribui miyat uribui. Because it's what you have here is the Torah said something that's expansive. It's saying all of this is true, and then it says, but I'm giving you a specific example. And then the Torah says at the end, again, the general rule. So you could also look at that first the Torah was marba, then the Torah was memayit, and then the Torah was marba again at the end. What's called a klal upratu klal can also be called a ribui miyat and ribui. What's the difference? A klal upratu klal is less, it ends up being less expansive. The ribui or the klal prat means only that which is like what was the prat. When we say ribui miyat or ribui, then the ribui, a klal is just saying we're saying a rule, and the prat is the example of the rule, and then when we're chayzev a klal, we say everything has to be similar to the klal. But it's to the prat, I'm sorry. But that's more limiting. When we say ribui, that means the Torah is coming to expand. It's saying everything is included. Then you have a miyat. So the miyat comes to restrict, but it only restricts. Then we come in kailo, so we say no, we're marba again. So that second ribui is coming to be marba everything except for one thing. So when you have a ribui miyat and ribui, we end up saying everything is included. It doesn't have to be specifically like the miyat. It's coming because we come to be marba again. It's coming to be marba, but since we have a miyat, we have to be memayat something. I say in a klal upratu klal. In the end, we're still left that everything has to be similar to the prat. Okay, so that's the two shitas. So Rabbi Tiva, my time of kamachayev l'shav. There's ribu yumiyat. So this case of the Shavuos, we said in the pasuk. I forgot to open the Chumash by me, but you guys both have it before, and it says, "Chalash yishava levate v'sasayim lahoroi lahetiv." Then before the Mishnah, right? It says, "Chalash yivate levate v'sasayim Lahaya lahetev anishka shuvat zayin lahara lahetev chol asher yivata adam b'shua v'nelam menu v'hu yada v'ashem la'achsmeil. So right, oinevish kishiv levat v'sayim is levat v'sayim is a klal or a ribui. Lahara lahetev is a prat or a miyat. L'chol asher yivata adam b'shua v'nelam menu is a ribui and a klal. Right. So that's the reason why Rabbi Kiva is disagreeing with Rabbi Yishmael, and he holds that you're going to be chayiv even l'sha'avar because he holds it as a ribui. He holds that what you end up with the more expansive thing. Rabbi Nami darish ribuye umiyute. Rabbi will also agree with it. Why? And this is the svar because we know that Rabbi generally holds that you darshan as a ribuy umiyute rather than a klal prat, the more expansive way of darshan the Tanya. Where do we see that? Rabbi I'm b'chol paidim b'char adam. You can be paida when you do a pigeon b'char, but we do after 30 days. You give the kohen 5 shkalim. It doesn't have to be bedafka 5 shkalim. Chutz min ashtaris. The only thing that's excluded is you can't write a star to say you're going to give $5, 5 shkalim, or even if you have a star from someone else, you can't hand that over. Rabbanan Amri, so that's Rabbi Shita. The only thing that is excluded is stars. The Rabbanan say no. It's not just stars that are excluded; it also excludes avodim stars and karkais. My time in the Rabbi, darsh rebiu miyute. The Torah says, "Legabi upuduya mi ben chodesh tifte." It's first it says a klal or a riboy that you could be paida your bechar. And then it says, and then afterwards it says another klal. It says a prat and then a klal. When it says at the end, tifte chazav riba, riba umiyat riba, the riba hakol. My riba kol mili, it's my everything. My miyat shtaris. That's Rebbe. Right, so Rebbe learns it as a ribu yimiyat. So the only thing that's excluded is shtaris, because that's the general rule of when you say a ribu yimiyat and ribu is that you only exclude one thing. For Rabbanan darshi klali uprati, ubduya ben chaydish klal be'erich hakasav ha'yish shkalim prat tifte v'chazav v'kolal klal prati atadon elika ena prat ma pat mafurish davar am talta v'guf v'mamen av kol davar am talta v'guf v'mamen yatzu hakayish ena metaltlin yatzu avodim, so excludes karka. That's not a metaltlin, right? It has to be something you can carry around, which is clearly not karka. Yatsu avadim shehuk shula karkais. Avadim are also similar to karka, and yatsu shtaris af b'shemetaltlin gufam mammon. They're still not doima to the prat. That the prat was bedafka kesef. So metaltlin is not doima to kesef because it doesn't represent shtaris, even though it can be carried around. It itself is not money. It only represents the ability to get money, so it's not similar to the prat. So you see that this is a machlekes Rebbe and the Rabbanan, and Rebbe saying that we darshan ribuya umiyute, we don't darshan klalu prat. So that's the svara why I was saying that legabi Shavuos also he's going to say like Rabbi Akiva, not like Rabbi Yishmael, because the reason why Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva were arguing was because they were arguing about whether it's a klalu pratu klal legabi Shavuos or whether it's a ribuy miyat or ribuy. Rebbe darish ribuy miyute. Does Rebbe hold that when we have a klal pratu klal ribuy miyat ribuy that he darshans at a ribuy miyat? But Rebbe klali prati darish. We find in another place that he does darshan a klal pratu klal. The Tanya Martseya. It says legabe an eved ivri when he goes out at the end of when he's supposed to go out at the end of his term of servitude. It says that if he chooses to stay, the lokachasar martseya, he takes the martseya. Martseya is a kind of tool used to make holes. I mean, anla rabas hasoil v'hasira. How do we know to include a splinter or a sira? Is a kite, a thorn, hamachad or a needle. Hamakadeach is another kind of tool that makes a hole. Hamachatev or a pen or a quill. The Torah says v'lakachta. So that's telling you that's a ribuy to tell you kol davar shenilchach biyad. Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Aima Martzeya, ma martzeya miyuchad shel matches. He says no, it's limited. A martzeya has to be something made out of metal. I've called shel matches, so it's not just it's excluding not just things that are not like a tool, a martzeya, but anything that's not matches. So he would also exclude from the list that we had said. L'Rabas Haselva Asira, he wouldn't include the soil and sira. He wouldn't include the splinter and the thorn because those are not made out of metal. So he is saying that it has to be more like the prat. So you see, he's darshaning klalu prat, not a ribuyumiyat. He's not saying it includes everything, even things that are not similar. He's saying no, it has to be similar to the prat, which is klalu prat to klal, not ribuyumiyat or ribuy. But Aminu might come if Rabbi Darish klalu prat. Rabbi said, "Yehuda Darish ribuyumiyati." So Gemara in Alma klalu prati Darish. Eina chanami. Rabbi does hold we darshan klalu prat. So but now we have a problem. Before we even get back to what's our svara over here, we have a stira, right? We just brought Lagabi pigeon that Rebbe represented the sheet of Ribu Yomiyat, that he said it's only going to exclude shtaris and not karka and avodim. So what's the difference? The ton de beri bishmal, b'mayim shnei pa'amim. It says Lagabi, the animals that are kosher in the water, it says anything that has fins and scales b'mayim. This would eat anything in the water. It says mayim twice.
What's this? Where's it say mayim twice?
It said that's one. Twice.
I'm saying what's I don't know some articles have psukim.
Yeah.
I think the newer ones have.
Really?
The ones do
I didn't know there's such a thing.
Yeah, I know. Me neither. Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Of course you have some. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
So that's talking about
That's talking about a whole new thing. We're talking about now Lagabi kosher animals.
Fine.
We're gonna bring this as a raya of a different way of deciding whether you darshan klal prat or klal ribu umiyah. So it says Lagabi kosher animals in the water. It says twice that there are animals in the water that have snape v'kaskeshas. First it says kolash mayim, and it says kolash loy snape v'kashas b'mayim. So we darshan shnei pa'am. So we say to tell you, the Rashi explains, this is coming to tell you, I might think that the question is, do we darshan as a klal upratu klal, which is, it has to be similar to the klal, and therefore will be mitzi from what's going to be not kosher, or we're going to say everything's going to be kosher that's similar to it, but if it's not similar to it, meaning we're going to exclude if there's something that's in a body of water. Does it have to be just a body of water? I think that's like an ocean or a river, or could it even be something that's in a puddle, which would exclude, for example, if let's say you don't include a animal in a puddle, or a fish in a puddle, like bugs in the water, like our little bugs that they say you have to filter out from the water. That's not that you find in a puddle. Sometimes there's little living bugs. Those would not be considered to be non-kosher swimming features. So it's going to depend. He said it's not a klalu prat, but rather it's let's see the Rashi. Over here, it's not a klal prat, but rather it's a klal and then a prat. So it says first mayim, which are both klalim, any kind of water. So they're going to say, Rabbi Yishmael is going to say any kind of water, doesn't make a difference where it comes from, you're going to be chayv. Rabban the pliga led Rabbi b'darshale b'klalu prat. So look at the Amri b'marav. Yeah, okay. Rabban. So it's not since the two klalim are before, and it's not going to be a klalu prat, even though it normally would be. It's rather going to be a ribu imit. Rabban Amar Ravina Kadamri Ben Rava Komang Shatamoitz Shtei Klosas Mukhazelzeh Hato Prapeneim Vedoinem Bechlalu Prat. They say it doesn't make a difference, even if the two klos are first. you just move over the prat, and it's still a klal prat to klal. It doesn't become converted into ribu yumiyat. So we're saying, Rebbe legabi. So therefore, he's going to answer the stira that by bechor, where it doesn't have it's not in this format. It doesn't have two klalos and then a prat. So then he taka learns it as a klal prat to klal. But we have the two klalim in advance legabe martseya. Therefore, he's going to say it's a ribu yumiyat. So now we're saying that Rebbe, unless it says he's saying generally we'll say it's a klal, we'll darshan as a klal prat to klal. The only exception is where you have the two klalos first, then it becomes converted into ribu yumiyat. But now we have again a problem by Shavuos. Over here, it doesn't have two klalos at the beginning, so it should remain a klal prat to klal. So Damara b'Shavuos nasav alei Rabbi Kiva v'lei loy sviralei. We're going to have to go in the end and say that Hitaka is saying just like Rabbi Akiva, he's not saying his own shita, but since we know his own shita in the first part, we'll assume that the second part he's just saying Rabbi Akiva. Okay. Shkayach.
Thank you. Have a great day.